rather than create guide blocks, unique guide blocks for this 1/2 inch pocket, what I did was I clamped a piece of scrap steel to the side of the jig, and then I shimmed off it so that I can ride the chisel like this against those steel scraps, and it's located right where I need it. And then once I go down on this jig, I'll set it up again on the shorter jig and drop this pocket further into the plane, and then I'll just unclamp everything and I'll redo it for another plane rather than create permanently installed blocks, because I need to do this multiple times. So this is just a chance for everybody to see how I do this. So it's a 1/2 inch pocket. I have a 1/2 inch chisel and it's sitting right where I need it. So I press it down against the jig, create that cut. Alright, I went as far as I could go with the second jig. So now I'm going to remove it. But I will leave the plane clamped to the block. And we can see, let's see, if we use the 1/4 inch chisel. So I have that much of the ramp chiseled away, and now I just got to define the top of the pocket, and my next step is going to be to bore the escapement and then chop the mouth and the escapement pocket, cut that with the back saw, and then connect the bottom of this to the escapement and continue with everything. So this is kind of like an intermediate view of what's going on, but that's a 1/2 inch pocket and about 2 inches deep along the ramp. And you can see here, see if we zoom in on this, you can see that layout line. So that this part right here, this triangle, I'm gonna do with the Skewed plane maker's float, and this part up here will be cleaned out as well, but the jig was right over that. So that's about it. Alright, I got my back saw. I'm gonna do the 2 cuts to the escapement. Try this by hand. This pocket, I am in this far along the bottom, which, let's see, if I do that here, so along here, that gets me almost to the escapement. So there's just a little bit longer. I'm going to connect this with a drill. Once I shape out the escapement, I'm gonna connect the escapement to the wedge pocket with a drill and then open it up. Shouldn't be a big deal. What I did by mistake was I bored this hole on the right side of the plane, and I bored it straight through at a 90-degree angle, and it came out too far in front of where I wanted the escapement. So I have to make the escapement larger on this one. On the other ones, there is no hole. It's just a shallow little cut. And then what I'll do is join the escapement on the other side to that little score mark, and then it'll create the funnel shaped escapement that I want. So this is a mistake, but I think I can make it work. Unfortunately, I did the one thing I didn't want to do, which was to make the escapement larger and weaken the plane. But this will be fine. Okay, let's see how this looks. I made some marks on the escapement that gives me the general idea of where that hole should be. So, if you can see, my two marks and my hole is in between the two marks. So, I'm in good shape. Oh, it's a little high. Alright, I'm gonna have to correct that. It's way high. Oh, maybe it's not. I have to see. I'll have to see how that looks. Alright, so the next step is to get this set up and get some floats ready and try and create some lines through here. So I got the blade blank set up, and I'm making a turn on one of these cuts, and I use the hacksaw frame with the cutting rod so that I can turn it within its own footprint, make a 90-degree cut. Once I come down about 3/4 of an inch, I can insert the hacksaw blade in that slot, and then I'll finish the cut with the hacksaw blade. I'm done roughing out the blank for this first skew plane. So I have a little bit of an interesting problem that I have to overcome. The blade is slightly wider than the plane itself. So I have to keep the long part of the blade exactly in the center of the blank. If I shift it to one side, then I won't catch the edge of the plane with the blade. So I carefully calculated where the middle of this shank is. Then I calculated the offset based on the skew, and I laid out both sides. So now I have to file down to the lines. You can see this is all wavy and stuff from the hacksaw. So I'm going to file down to the line on each side and then create the bevel, because there's an offset. So the one set of lines on one side is shifted to the other side based on the bevel. So I'll get to work on that, and then I'll take this to the next stage. Did some fitting on the plane. I got the bed for the blade flat. I did all the filing that I could. I could probably do a little bit more. And I also did some filing on the blade, and I also clipped the corner so that it fits further up into the escapement. I don't know if you can see that. So that corner back here is removed. So now I got this marked out, and what I'm going to go ahead and do with the awl is scribe my lines, including the ones on the side, because this is going to be trimmed right to the width of the plane, and that's going to also be on a skew angle, so that the side of this blade is parallel, so that as it gets shorter and sharpened, it'll lower itself in the plane, and it'll still be at the correct angle. So did all that. I roughed out the wedge. I have the bottom angle along the top of the blade set really nicely. You can see that right here. That's real nice. The sides are parallel, the pocket's real good. So now I just have to trim the top angle. I have to get full contact across here and full contact all the way along the escapement back down to the wedge down here. So right here it's a little tight and the angle is very close, and then back here it's loose and the angle is further away. So I got to create like a compound taper. So what I have is I have a clamp set up, and this will be secure enough for me to hold the wedge, and then also elevated in a way that I can pass the plane and not collide with anything. So let's see, I want to take a little bit off this angle, but then I want to taper it more. So I gotta come in like this. Let's see, am I getting this yet? All right, let me just work on the angle then instead of the taper. Okay, so now the wedge is too long, so as it travels further down the pocket, it has to be trimmed. All right, that's getting close. Anyway, that's the idea. I'm not going to film all this because I'm going to start getting in the way and really get into this, but that's the idea about how you're basically transferring it from the plane to the adjusting area, then back to the plane until you trim it and you get the angles. This top angle here is the taper this way, and then the bevel the other way. So it's not easy, but once you get it, you'll see that wedge will lock that blade in tight, and then you can start the shaping. Okay, I'm going to try something experimental on this plane. I'm gonna add some plastic to the corners to reinforce the corners. So I think I did this once before and it came out okay. So I bought a plastic sheet at the local supply house, homeowner's supply house, and give this a shot. Alright, so this is the one I just trimmed, so you can get in there real close. This is the one I just trimmed, and that's the one that's yet to be trimmed. So it's going to reinforce the corner nicely. Could hardly see it. So we'll see how that holds up. Alright, I got the laminate plane set up, and I'm going to cut the escapement. See how this goes, see if I can get a little closer. Let's see, this is... Well, this is the beginning of the escapement right here, and you can see the pocket extends through the laminates, and you get your boxing here. So it's coming along. This is already worked out at the top, and you got the escapement on the other side. So I'm just going to start connecting the dots and shaping this freehand. There's really nothing I can copy because this is a unique plane. Now right in here, see if you can see this, But right in here there's a tiny little step. So these two sides have to be trimmed down to the surface in the middle. The middle is the actual bed of the blade. So I left these two sides a little heavy, and now these have to be trimmed down flat so that this line right here extends all the way up to the wedge pocket, all flat, which is not that hard, but that's what has to be done. So there's really not much more I want to show on this. This is I'll come back to this at another time. I have the blade already laid out for this plane, and I will rough that, and then my next segment will be on the dado plane. The other two planes that I have going are pretty much the same as this one and this one. It's just a repeat. They're different sizes. All the techniques and everything are the same. I do have the wedge already laid out for the big rabbit plane, so I will get to that. I may or may not do some more shaping and some hardening and tempering on these blades. I'll probably leave that all for the end. So I'm gonna do some editing now and break away and get another segment filmed, and then I need much more time and to do a lot more work and film the dado planes. But I think this is coming along pretty well, and I have the major work done on 3 of the 8 planes. So everything is looking good. Everybody, stay strong.